Sorcerers! Josh here. Let's talk about those Gothic previews. Yeah, I'm a little late to the party, I know. Life has been busy. Finding the time to actually do filming has become much more difficult. So we're going to see if I can keep up the pace. So I'm late to the party, but let's talk about it. We got a whole bunch of new previewed cards from Gothic. Start off with the very first three that were shown right off the bat. Horrible Hybrids, Hellhounds, and the Ghoul. These were each shown as a preview of the evil mechanic. So monster, demon, undead. Those three cards. Very basic. 3 mana, 1 threshold of whatever element they are, 3 power. Nothing to write home about. Highly likely to end up in the Gothic precons. That's all there is for these cards. Seems unlikely that they'll see play unless maybe there's some sort of synergy with one of those demon, undead, monster type things that you would want a card like this. Typically, if you're paying 3 mana, you want either more than 3 power or you want something extra with your 3 power. So overall, these cards were not all that exciting, save one little thing. The Ghoul. Now, I expected the Ghoul to actually be Earth, so to see it as air was interesting, although air does have a number of undead cards, so that's not necessarily unusual. It's just, when I think of ghouls, I think more earthy. That's just me. But the exciting thing about the Ghoul is the piece of art itself, which is by Braum. Another piece by Braum in Sorcery. Unfortunately, it is a licensed piece. It was also in the Guardians TCG. I am looking forward more than anything to the first original piece of artwork by Braum in Sorcery. I'm really excited for that. I'm hoping it happens. I don't know if that's something that Braum would do. I don't know what it would take to get him to paint an original painting. I think he kind of does his own thing, sort of like Ian Miller. I feel like Ian Miller, he does what he wants to do. He's done it. He's seen it all within the realm of doing these types of things, and that's it. But I am still hopeful that we will eventually see an original piece of Sorcery artwork by Braum in Sorcery, and I was hoping it would be Gothic. But at least we got another licensed piece. Now, moving on from those 3 cards that are ordinary and not exciting, we move on to a card that actually is a little exciting. The Willing Tribute. For 2 mana, 1 air threshold, you get a 2 power ordinary mortal. But this mortal can sack itself in order to untap an adjacent demon. When I look at the cards and look at where undead and demons fall, there's a lot of them in air and earth. Right now, in my opinion, the most terrifying demon in Sorcery is Pudge Butcher. He's very efficient. He does an incredible thing by pulling things to him and then hitting them. Yeah, he's immobile, but still, the ability to shoot that projectile, pull something in, hit something for 5, being able to get something out like that on like turn 3, that's scary. So the idea that you could have an earth-air deck where you could pudge someone and then play a willing sacrifice, or a willing tribute. Yeah, that's what he is, a willing sacrifice. A willing tribute, and this isn't a tap ability. Just sacrifice him. So you should be able to activate this despite his summoning sickness. It's not something that requires him to tap. It's not a cost that you have to pay. That's all that summoning sickness prevents, is for you to tap. So you pudge someone, hit something for 5, maybe the avatar, willing tribute, comes out, sack it, hit it again. And what could be really scary is if we start to see other cards that bring this tribute back from the cemetery. For example, you've got your Pudge out, and then you play your Willing Tribute, and then you play Miracle Workers, and you bring back your Willing Tribute, and then you sack it again, and then you've hit for 15 in one turn. Absolutely terrifying. I think that Willing Tribute may find a place in some decks. I'm very hopeful for it. Another very important fact about Willing Tribute, we get to see our first piece of artwork by the new artist. I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, and I'm sorry. Zon D. I think it's Zon. It looks like Zon. It may not be, and I apologize if it's not. New piece of artwork by a new artist. So that is another cool thing about this new Ordinary Mortal, that you're going to sacrifice all the dang time. I really think he's going to have some fun mechanics. I just have this feeling people are going to recur that guy all the time. Bring him back, sack him, bring him back, sack him. I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen a lot. That's just me. So, next card, the card that has probably the best wording, Consecrated Ground. An exceptional sight, Earth, of course. Evil has no power here. Like they wrapped up the flavor text and everything all in one. Flavor text rules, it's all in that sentence. Evil has no power here. Very nice wording. I like it. It's kind of neat to make that kind of connection. But this card basically makes it so that evil has no power at Consecrated Ground. So, what does that mean? That means that if an evil minion moves there, is perhaps dragged there, then it will have no power and can be quickly vanquished by your foot soldier. Yes, foot soldier vanquishes. Ha! So, neat card. Could see a place in Earth decks. I can definitely see it as a possible card to fill out your deck. Again, how prevalent are demons, undead, and monsters going to become? I think they're going to be pretty prevalent. I think we're going to see a lot of them. Some of them are going to be good. All things equal, given that we're hopefully getting about 400 cards, there are going to be some good cards that are demons, undead, and monsters. So a card like Consecrated Ground could be a nice little counter for them. But we'll see. Time will tell. Who knows what other sites we're going to get. Finally, we get to the Elite. The Elite card that we were shown. I was excited for this card to say one little thing. So this card is Dormant Monstrosity. 7 mana, 2 water threshold, 6 power. Void Walk. Very cool piece of artwork by Elwira. Love it. Beautiful piece. This big Lovecraftian monstrosity floating out in space. Planets around it. And when you play it, you have to play it to a void corner. But for every minion that is, well, it doesn't say minion, it says unit. Sorry, unit, not minion, unit. For every unit in an adjacent square, it costs 2 less to cast. That is terrifying. So that means that this thing, if you first turn sight core and you play a Spectral Stalker out to an adjacent, to avoid somewhere that's going to be adjacent to where you're going to put your Dormant Monstrosity. Okay, there's 2 off, so now he's a 5. Next turn you got 3 mana. Let's say you play a Phase Assassin. Okay. Turn 3, You got 4 mana. Your monstrosity only costs 3. And here he is. He's out. Now, some of you are going to say, well, yeah, but he's in a corner. Yeah, but that could be your opponent's corner. That's real close. That is real close to their home base. This card is very scary in terms of how fast it can come out and how effectively it can get to your opponent very, very early. Especially, if you pair this with air, which the 2 cards I just named that you would play, they're Voidwalkers. Those are air, so you're going to have access to teleport, to blink, to flanking maneuver. Those cards are going to let you jump to your opponent's site very quickly. Absolutely terrifying. This is probably as much as I like Willing Tribute, and I really like Willing Tribute, I think Dormant Monstrosity just has a lot of cool combos around him. Given that he has this way to get himself out so early, and it's going to be very hard to prevent. Your opponent is literally going to have to, because he's got to deploy to a void, right? So that's the big thing. We got to put him in that corner void. That's a big deal. So your opponent could, if they see you playing guys, out in the void, they could play their sights out, so that sight's no longer a void, and then you don't get that bonus. But man, you're gonna completely mess up their strategy, because you'll be able to build into them and get into their side of the table if they're trying to, prevent you from playing that monstrosity in their corner void. And, you can shake it up, put, 1 here, 1 there. It'd slow you down a little bit, right? If you, play the Spectral Stalker turn 1 over here on your left, you play your Phase Assassin over here on your right. So they're not going to be able to build out both sides. But that way, if you split them up, your opponent can't deal with it. Yeah, you're going to get it a turn later than you would have otherwise. I think a turn later. Yeah, because he'd be 5. And by turn 4, you would have 5 if you had a core. So he would be out a turn later, but doing it that way, you're going to be in your opponent's zone very quickly, very effectively. Now, of course, you do have to sacrifice those 2 minions really doing anything, because you need them out there. You need them waiting in that adjacent square. And I do want to say something about that wording. As a judge, I really like this wording. Adjacent square. It's perfect. It's so simple. One of the things that so many players struggle with sorcery is the concept of regions, site versus location. Adjacent square is wonderful. Because we're talking about this square. It doesn't matter if the square is a void. It doesn't matter if there's a site in the square. It doesn't matter if it's a rubble. It doesn't matter. Adjacent square. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Really like that wording. But now, because I'm an old man, I have to have a gripe. 6 power? 6? This thing, and this is based on the artwork, okay? Don't think I'm totally crazy. It's a good card. But I don't think it's a great card. I think it's a good card. I think there's a strategy that can be built around it that can make it exciting. Hopefully there are other things that can do the same sort of thing that make this type of deck very viable. But when you look at that art, this Lovecraftian monstrosity floating in space, and there are literal planets, and it's 6 power? 6? I mean, the Kraken's 8, the Great Old One's 16, and I get it, it's dormant. So, he's a sleepy boy. He can't wake up. That's why he's only 6 power. He can't stir, right? It's like if you're going in and there is an elder dragon and it's asleep, you're probably not necessarily going to wake it up if it's in a fantasy setting where dragons like to sleep and hibernate a lot, and they're hard to wake up. That is a common thing in certain types of fantasy literature, where those types of creatures that are so large have to hibernate for long periods. So waking them up, getting them active, getting them up to where they're actually going again takes a long time. So I guess that explains the 6 power. But man, with that piece of art, I was like, oh, he's going to be huge. And he's 6 power. Still wonderful. I still think it's going to be a card that can definitely see some play, especially if there's some other mechanics that can play into it, that can build around it. I've always liked the concept of Void Walk and building a Void Walk deck. The one limitation, obviously, is there's not going to be a lot of Void unless... There's not going to be a lot of Void to take advantage of the longer the game progresses. So cards like Phase Assassin become less useful because they can't go back to get that stealth or whatever. Being able to move away, to hide themselves in the Void becomes more difficult because there are more sites on the board, more things are filled out. So I like the idea of a Void Walk deck, but I think for a Void Walk deck to truly work well, it's one of those decks that's going to need to have speed. It's going to have to hit fast, take advantage of the Void while it's available early and mid game. And then hopefully it's one, right? For this deck to work, I feel like a Void Walk focused deck may need to be the type of deck that wins by mid game, that wins quickly, very aggressively, that type of thing. And Dormant Monstrosity appears to be a new little piece to make that a possibility. Swinging for 6 real early. That is scary. So that's like Pudge Butcher turn 3 scary. I like it. I think it's a cool card. I'm hoping it sees a lot. I'm hoping it sees a lot of play. Love the piece of art. Just wish he wasn't just power 6. But the mechanics. If the art was different, if I just looked at the mechanics, I like the mechanics. Mechanics are super cool. I like how it's going to work. Very neat. That's it for the previews. Oh, wait. No, it's not. We got one other preview, but we already had the preview. We got to see the actual artwork, the non-promo artwork, because it is a judge promo, for Day of Judgment. Kaio, amazing, as always. Beautiful piece, but we all know I'm still a doubter on how effective Day of Judgment is actually going to be in terms of actual play. But still a beautiful card, beautiful piece of art. It's huge, by the way. If you have not seen the pictures that were posted on Collector Art House's website where Kaio is out with the painting, it is, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, 4, maybe it's not 4, but it's like 3.5 feet, maybe 3.5 feet, somewhere in there, I think. Very, very tall piece, very big piece. I believe they stated it is the largest canvas piece he's ever painted. Absolutely gorgeous. But the card itself, still have my doubts. 7 mana, 3 threshold. Whew. That's a dedicated thing, and the cross pattern. I've talked about this 100 times. That's it. That's it for all the previews of this batch. I like Willing Tribute a lot. I like Dormant Monstrosity a lot. But will they have the effects that we think, that I think, after Arthurian Legends, after Just a Rock, and what happened with it? It's anyone's guess. Who knows which one of these cards are actually ended up becoming a defining card, something that truly shapes the meta. We don't know. And the folks over at Erik's Curiosa are not going to let us see very many of the cards before Gothic actually releases. I think they did say they're going to let us see more than they did with Arthurian Legends, but it's still a 400 card set. So they're not going to let us see. I would think that we will be lucky to see 30 to 40% of the cards. Like if we see 30 to 40% of the cards, I think that would be a high quantity. You know, if they got to 50, that'd be fantastic. But I just can't see them getting past any more than that. Now, maybe they will. But they did say this year, not a lot of time, unless we're revealing a card every day, to get to that kind of quantity. And I don't know that that's going to happen unless we get these big drops like this where we're seeing 6 new cards every week. Well, if you do that, yeah, you probably get to a pretty high percentage. But again, let's say it's October. How many weeks is that? Oh, from this point, July, August, September, October, let's see all those months. You probably got, let's say 20 weeks, and I'm being generous. It might actually be less than that. 20 weeks from now, even then, you're only talking, 120 cards? So you're not even, assuming the set's 400, that's a big assumption. You're not even at that 50% mark. So that's why I'm thinking 30, 40%. That's probably where we're going to be at. And if it's later, yeah, maybe we can get to half. Now, if we're talking December, okay, maybe we can get to half. But I'm still doubtful that we'll even see half. That being said, like the previews, Willing Tribute, I'm really liking him. But I liked other things with Arthurian Legends. So that's it for today. As always, keep on contesting the realm!